The breaking point. The emergency lights pulsed crimson throughout the Galactic Council chambers, casting long shadows across the faces of the most powerful beings in known space. Shouting filled the vast circular hall as delegates from 100 worlds argued, their translators struggling to keep pace with the heated exchanges. "This attack cannot stand," thundered Ambassador Kresh, his crystalline exoskeleton vibrating with barely contained rage. The Vorathi representative slammed all 4 of his armored appendages against the podium. 3,000 civilians dead on Outpost Terria. The Scar Imperium has crossed the final line. Captain Maya Chen stood at the back of the chamber, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. As head of the Human Contingent's Special Operations Division, she hadn't expected to be summoned to a full council session. Yet here she was, observing a galaxy on the brink of total war. "The evidence is circumstantial," countered Ambassador T. Lorne, the Ashari delegate's tentacles rippling with bioluminescent patterns of caution. "We must investigate before." "While you investigate, more colonies burn," interrupted General Vrax, the massive Taurian war leader. His bovine features contorted with fury as he gestured at the holographic display, showing the devastation on Terria. "I have already mobilized the 7th Fleet. We strike back within 30 hours. Maya's comm unit vibrated. A message from Admiral Hastings. "Stand by. You're up next." She straightened, mentally preparing for what was coming. Humans had only held a seat on the Galactic Council for 8 years, newcomers by the standards of species that measured their civilizations in millennia. Many still viewed humanity as primitive upstarts, barely worth acknowledging. High Chancellor Ziv, the ancient Maladin who presided over the council, raised his withered hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. "The council recognizes Admiral James Hastings of Earth," Ziv announced, his voice carrying despite its frailty. Hastings rose from the human delegation's bench. At 62, with silver-streaked hair and the bearing of someone who had spent his life in command, he commanded attention without effort. "Honorable representatives," he began, "we stand at a precipice. What happens in the next day will determine whether our civilizations plunge into a war that could last decades and cost billions of lives." A hiss of disagreement came from the Scar delegation, 7-foot predators with scaled skin and eyes adapted for hunting. Their ambassador, Varric, leaned forward. "The Imperium categorically denies involvement in the Terria massacre," Varric said, voice low and menacing. "These accusations are baseless. Perhaps this is a false flag operation by those seeking to expand their territory into our space." The chamber erupted again. Maya watched as accusations flew across the room. Threats were exchanged, and alliances began to solidify in real time. This was how wars began, not with a declaration, but with fear, anger, and the certainty that striking first was the only option. Chancellor Ziv pounded his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times. "Order. We will have order." When the room finally quieted, Hastings continued, "I propose a third option. Neither war nor inaction, but a limited operation to discover the truth before we commit our civilizations to mutual destruction." Maya took a deep breath. This was her cue. "I wish to introduce Captain Maya Chen." Hastings gestured toward her. "She leads our Special Reconnaissance Division." Maya stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes, some curious, most dismissive, a few openly hostile. "The attack on Terria bears certain inconsistencies," she began, her voice steady. "The targeting pattern, the timing of communications blackouts, the specific technologies deployed. They don't align with known Scar military doctrine." She activated her datapad, projecting a series of analytical overlays onto the main holodisplay. The residual energy signatures from the orbital bombardment contain trace elements that aren't consistent with Scar weapon systems. The attack formation suggests multiple points of origin, not a single battle group. "What are you suggesting, human?" General Vrax demanded. "I'm suggesting that someone wants a war between the Council and the Scar Imperium, and they've engineered the perfect catalyst." Ambassador Varric of the Scar leaned forward, mandibles clicking. Your species is young, Captain. Perhaps too young to understand the complexities of galactic politics. The Imperium does not require outside influence to be cast as villains. Your council has done that effectively for centuries. Maya nodded, acknowledging the point. Which makes you the perfect scapegoat. Someone is playing us all. Chancellor Ziv's ancient eyes narrowed. What do you propose, Captain? A small team. Covert insertion into disputed territory. We find evidence of who really attacked Tyria before the fleets engage, and there's no turning back. Laughter erupted from several delegations. General Vrax snorted derisively. You expect us to delay our response on the promise that a handful of humans will unveil some conspiracy? No, Maya replied calmly. I expect you to give us 18 hours before you start a war that will outlive everyone in this chamber. The room fell silent. Impossible, Kresh of the Vorathi declared. Our intelligence networks have detected Scar fleet movements consistent with preparation for further attacks. We cannot afford to wait. The human proposal has merit. T. Lorne of the Asheri interjected, her normally soft voice firm. A small operation risks little compared to full-scale war. Maya looked directly at Chancellor Ziv. 18 hours. If we're wrong, nothing changes. The fleets deploy as planned. But if we're right, we save billions of lives. The ancient Maladin studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Hastings. Your species has been part of this council for a relatively brief time, Admiral. Yet you ask for extraordinary trust. We do, Hastings acknowledged, because humans understand something about war that some older species may have forgotten. It's easy to start, nearly impossible to stop, and the aftermath is never what you expected. Ziv considered this, then raised his hand again. The council will recess for 1 hour while I consult with the security committee. As delegates filed out, Maya received another message. Prep your team. Departure in 3 hours, regardless of the council's decision. Maya nodded to herself. This was why humans had advanced so quickly in the galactic hierarchy. They didn't wait for permission to do what needed to be done. 3 hours later, Maya stood in the hangar bay of the Earth vessel Nightshade, a stealth frigate designed for covert operations. Her team of 6 specialists was already aboard, prepping equipment. The council gave us 12 hours, Hastings informed her as they walked toward the ship. Not 18. Ziv convinced the Hawks to delay, but the Doves couldn't hold out for more. It'll have to be enough, Maya replied. This mission is off the books, Captain. If you're captured. I know, sir. We don't exist. Hastings stopped, turning to face her. Find who did this, Maya. The galaxy can't afford this war. Humanity can't afford it. Maya nodded. We'll find them. The team was waiting in the briefing room as Maya boarded. Lieutenant Raj Patel, tech and cyber warfare specialist. Sergeant Isabella Cruz, weapons expert. Dr. Elias Kim, xenobiologist and field medic. Commander Weizong, tactical operations. Lieutenant Tariq Hassan, infiltration specialist. And specialist Daria Volkov, communications and linguistics. We have 12 hours to prevent a galactic war, Maya announced without preamble. The target is the Nix Nebula border region, specifically the abandoned mining outpost on Kadeth. Intelligence suggests unusual activity there in the days before the Tyria attack. That's deep in the disputed territories, John noted. Heavy Scar patrols, automated defense networks, and who knows what else waiting for us. Which is why we're going in with the Nightshade, Maya replied. Its stealth systems should get us past the outer defense grid. Should. Kruz raised an eyebrow. Should, Maya confirmed. No guarantees on this one. What exactly are we looking for, Captain? Kim asked. Evidence, communication logs, weapons signatures, anything that proves the Scar weren't responsible for Tyria, or confirms they were, Patel added. Maya nodded. Either way, we need proof that will convince the council before the fleets engage. And if we can't find it in time, Hassan asked the question they were all thinking. Then we witnessed the beginning of a war that will redefine the galaxy, Maya said grimly. Suit up. We launch in 15. As the team dispersed, Maya took a moment alone on the observation deck. Below, the massive orbital shipyards of Earth Station Alpha sprawled across the blackness, humanity's contribution to galactic infrastructure. In the distance, she could just make out the glittering lights of the Council's defensive fleet, already forming up into battle formations. 12 hours to prevent a catastrophe. It wasn't much time, but humans had always excelled when the odds were stacked against them. It was, after all, how they'd survived on Earth long enough to reach the stars. Maya took a deep breath and headed for the bridge. It was time to show the galaxy what humans all do. Humanity's edge. The Nightshade emerged from its controlled quantum jump at the edge of the Nix Nebula, its stealth systems immediately engaging. The ship's exterior absorbed rather than reflected light, its engine emissions cooled to match the background radiation of space. To most sensors, it was nothing more than a passing shadow against the nebula's swirling clouds. Sensors detect 3 Shkar patrol vessels in standard sweep formation. Lieutenant Hassan reported from his station. Current trajectory will keep us outside their detection range. Maya studied the tactical display. Any signs of the activity our intelligence reported? Nothing obvious on long-range scans, Commander John replied. But there's significant interference from the nebula. We'll need to get closer to Kadath for detailed readings. Take us in, Helm. Minimum power, maximum stealth profile. The Nightshade glided forward, a ghost among the stars. Maya felt the familiar tension build in her chest, the mixture of focus and anticipation that came before every high-risk operation. Captain, Specialist Volkov called from communications. I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from Kadath. Not standard Shkar military protocols. Can you crack them? Working on it. The encryption is unusual, multi-layered, with shifting algorithms. Lieutenant Patel, assist with the decryption, Maya ordered. I want to know who's talking and what they're saying before we reach Kadath. The next 2 hours passed in tense silence as the Nightshade approached the asteroid where the abandoned mining outpost was located. Kadath had been a significant source of rare elements until the ore veins were depleted 3 decades ago. Now it should have been deserted, just another lifeless rock in disputed territory. I've got something, Patil announced suddenly. Partial decryption of the communication streams. They're using a hybrid cipher that combines elements from multiple species encryption standards. Clever. It would confuse standard decryption algorithms. What does it tell us? Maya asked. The messages reference something called Project Eclipse. Multiple parties involved. There's mention of a final staging area and deployment schedule. Maya's eyes narrowed. Deployment of what? Unknown, but there's a countdown timer in the communications. 10 hours and counting. That's right before the Council fleets are set to engage, Zhang observed. Not a coincidence, Maya said firmly. We need to get into that outpost. Commander Zhang, prepare a ground team. Full stealth protocol. 30 minutes later, Maya led her team through the airless surface of Kadath, using the asteroid's craggy terrain for cover. The abandoned mining facility loomed ahead, a collection of domed structures and extraction towers silhouetted against the nebula's glow. Life signs, Maya asked over the secure comm. Mixed readings, Kim replied, checking his scanner. At least 3 different species inside the main complex. Unusual energy signatures too, some kind of shielded area in the central hub. Formation Delta, Maya ordered. Hassan and crews on point. Patel, find us an access path that won't trigger alarms. The team moved with practiced precision, using their suit thrusters for controlled bursts between cover positions. As they approached the facility, Patel identified a maintenance airlock with outdated security protocols he could bypass. We're in, he confirmed after working on the control panel. But I'm reading internal security systems beyond this point. Motion sensors, thermal imaging arrays, military grade. Can you loop the feeds? Maya asked. For a few minutes at most. They're running periodic security checks. That'll have to do. Remember, we need proof of who's behind the Tyria attack. Capture, don't kill. Unless absolutely necessary. The team entered the facility one by one, emerging into a darkened maintenance corridor. The artificial gravity activated automatically as they crossed the threshold, the sudden wait a momentary adjustment after the lunar-like conditions outside. Split into pairs, Maya instructed. Kim, you're with me. We'll head for the central hub. The rest of you, secure the perimeter and find their communication center. Maya and Kim moved cautiously through the complex, avoiding the main corridors and using service tunnels where possible. The facility showed signs of recent refurbishment, new power conduits, security systems, reinforced bulkheads. Someone's invested heavily in this place, Kim murmured. Question is, why here? Why a depleted mining outpost in disputed territory? Perfect deniability, Kim suggested. If discovered, each side could accuse the other of operating it. They reached a security door leading to the central hub. Patil remotely assisted with the bypass, warning them they had less than 10 seconds before the security system registered the intrusion. As the door slid open, Maya and Kim slipped inside and froze. The central hub had been converted into a massive staging area. Dozens of unmarked ships were docked in internal bays, being loaded with what looked like weapon platforms. Workers from at least 5 different species moved with purpose, none of them Scar. Captain, Kim whispered, pointing to a holographic display at the center of the room. Look. The display showed a strategic map of Council and Scar space, with highlighted targets across both territories. A countdown timer ticked down, 8:42:17. They're planning simultaneous strikes, Maya realized, against both sides. Once the war starts, each will blame the other for these attacks. But who's they? Kim asked. The answer came as a tall figure entered the hub from an elevated walkway. Maya recognized the species immediately. Xanthian. Supposedly neutral in the current tensions, the Xanthians were technological merchants who sold to all sides, and whose commerce would skyrocket during a prolonged conflict. Specialist Volkov, Maya vocalized into her comm. I need you to record and transmit everything we're seeing to the Nightshade. Priority encryption to Admiral Hastings. Transmission initiated, Volkov confirmed. But our window is closing. Security systems are starting to detect our interference. Maya made a quick decision. All teams, converge on the central hub. We need to capture that Xanthian leader and as much data as possible. This is our proof. What followed was controlled chaos. The human team executed a perfect synchronized assault, using non-lethal tactics to neutralize the hub's security. The Xanthian leader attempted to flee but found himself face-to-face with Sergeant Cruz, who efficiently disabled him with a neural disruptor. Download everything you can from their systems, Maya ordered Patil as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Specialist Volkov, make sure the transmission to Hastings is complete. Scar vessels altering course, Hassan reported. They've detected the alert. Estimated time to intercept, 15 minutes. Maya nodded. Mind racing. Zhang, set demolition charges. Target their weapons and ships, not the evidence. Kim, prepare the prisoner for transport. The team worked with ruthless efficiency, racing against both the countdown and the approaching Scar patrols. Patil extracted terabytes of data while Cruz and Hassan secured escape routes. Captain, Volkov called out suddenly. Incoming transmission from Admiral Hastings. Maya activated her comm. Go ahead, Admiral. We received your data package, Hastings said, his voice tight. Chancellor Ziv has called an emergency session. The Xanthian ambassador is denying everything. We have their operation leader in custody and are extracting with comprehensive evidence, Maya replied. Request immediate extraction. The Nightshade is moving to your position, but the Scar patrols will intercept before you can reach orbit. Maya looked around the hub. An idea forming. Sir, we may have an alternative extraction method. Stand by. She turned to her team. Change of plans. We're taking one of their ships. Patel, can you get access to their launch controls? The tech specialist grinned. Already ahead of you, Captain. Their security is focusing on external threats, not internal systems. Perfect. Everyone to Bay 3. We're stealing a warship. 7 minutes later, as the SCAR patrol vessels entered Kadath's orbit, a single ship launched from the facility. Its transponder identified it as a Xanthian merchant vessel on authorized business. SCAR Control is requesting authentication codes, Volkov reported as they accelerated away from the asteroid. Send the codes we found in their database, Maya ordered, and prepare for quantum jump the moment we clear the nebula's interference. The stolen ship shuddered as its engines pushed to maximum output. Behind them, the abandoned mining facility erupted in a series of controlled explosions, destroying the weapons and unmarked vessels while preserving the command center as evidence. SCAR vessels are holding position at Kadath, Hassan confirmed. They're buying our cover. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Set course to rendezvous with the Nightshade. We need to get this evidence and our guest to the Council immediately. 6 hours later, Maya stood once again in the Council chamber. This time, she wasn't an observer at the back, but at the center, presenting irrefutable evidence of the Xanthian conspiracy. The attack on Tyria was engineered by a Xanthian extremist faction, seeking to profit from a galactic war. She explained as holographic evidence filled the air around her. They used modified weapons to mimic SCAR's signatures and planned additional attacks against both sides once hostilities began. The chamber was silent, a stark contrast to the chaos of her previous visit. The Xanthian government claims no knowledge of this operation. Chancellor Ziv noted, his ancient eyes fixed on Maya. That may be true, she acknowledged. But the evidence suggests at least some officials were complicit. The operation was too well-funded, too sophisticated for a truly independent cell. Ambassador Varric of the SCAR Imperium rose slowly. The Imperium acknowledges the human evidence and withdraws any aggressive posturing in response to these revelations. We will, however, demand reparations from the Xanthians. One by one, the representatives who had been calling for immediate war now spoke of diplomatic solutions and joint security operations. The fleets that had been positioned for conflict began to stand down. Admiral Hastings approached Maya as the session concluded. The Council has approved a joint human SCAR task force to dismantle any remaining Xanthian operations. They've requested you lead it. Maya raised an eyebrow. The SCAR agreed to that. Apparently, they've developed a newfound respect for human methods. Hastings smiled slightly. You stopped a war, Captain. Not many can claim that achievement. My team stopped it, sir. I just pointed them in the right direction. That's what humanity brings to the galaxy, Maya. Not just technology or military strength, but a different perspective. We see patterns others miss because we haven't had millennia to develop institutional blindness. As they walked from the chamber, Maya glanced back at the delegates still engaged in animated discussion. For the first time since joining the galactic community, humans weren't just participants in cosmic politics, they were shapers of it. The war had been unstoppable until humans changed the game, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again.